Today on AGetc, we talk to guests from the Rossville Field Day. First, Nathan Nelson talks about water quality and the importance of cover crops. Then we hear from Mickey Ransom, who discusses some of the changes going on in the Department of Agronomy at K-State. And we'll hear from Dr. Ignacio Ciampitti, who is talking about the difference between crops, specifically corn and soybeans. Then Anita Dille looks at the advantages of cover crops and weed control. And we end with a few words about herbicide resistance with Stu Duncan. Closed captioning brought to you by Ag Promo Source. Together we grow. Learn more at agpromosource.com. This segment brought to you by Kansas Regenerative Medicine. Your stem cells, your health, your life.
My name is Nathan Nelson. I'm with the Department of Agronomy at Kansas State University. I study soil fertility and nutrient management, and recently we've been looking at the effects of cover crops on water quality, particularly soil loss and phosphorus loss. When the soil and the phosphorus get into the waters, they can cause problems with sedimentation in reservoirs, can contribute to algal blooms, and so we'd like to keep those the soil and the nutrients in our fields. We were looking at the way cover crops might impact that. We found that cover crops reduce sediment loss from fields quite a bit, by 60 to 70%. And that's in no-till fields, so they do an excellent job at stopping sediment loss. They slow down the water. We get about the same amount of runoff, but it comes off slower. And by doing that, it reduces the sediment loss. With phosphorus, the total phosphorus amount hasn't changed though, so the cover crops aren't changing the total amount. They do change the form because we have less sediment coming off, we have less particulate phosphorus and more dissolved phosphorus. So what that has shown us is that the cover crops can do excellent things for water quality and slowing down sediment removal, but we need to use other management practices, particularly 4R management practices for the nutrients. And so we're looking at the right source, place, time, and rate of our fertilizers. In the same study, we found that subsurface placement of phosphorus fertilizer reduces our total phosphorus loss by about 30%. And reduces our dissolved phosphorus loss, I think, somewhere around 40%. And so that's a great benefit to water quality, and so we're recommending that, that the cover crops can be used to slow down the water and to reduce the sediment loss, but then use subsurface phosphorus placement to reduce our phosphorus losses. So the cover crops have, we've seen we've got a few different treatments out there. We've seen that definitely our phosphorus fertilizers increased our yield in both corn and soybeans, so it's a corn-soybean rotation. We've seen higher yields with the fertilizer. We have seen last year we saw a little bit of a yield reduction in our corn with the cover crop. I think it was partly due to some dry weather. This year we've got soybeans in the study. We're not really for sure yet exactly how the cover crop early this year affected soybeans. It did reduce our soil moisture quite a bit, and so because of that we've had a little bit less runoff from those fields with the cover crop this year in such a dry year. I think there's some possibilities for adjusting the way when you terminate the cover crop. And some of this is just talking to other faculty and other producers. And if you terminate the cover crop earlier, then you have less of a chance of having a little bit of a yield loss because of dry weather. Cover crops, when they're terminated early, your soil tends to stay a little bit wetter and can actually increase the runoff during that time of the year. And can make it a little bit harder to go plant, so it really depends upon the year, right?
Hi, I'm Kim Mandring with Hardy Insurance. I'm here to help you with all of your farm and ranch needs. When it comes to protecting your operation and your family, you need a name you can trust at a price you can afford. Call me today or visit hardyaviationins.com.
Sure Crop Fertilizers was started by my father, Don Sherman, and my mother, Shirley Sherman. Family business that started in the 80s. We predominantly focus on plant nutrients and what we can do to give growers better responses with the fertilizer dollars that they do, and what we can do to make those things work better for that grower. We're based out of Seneca, Kansas. We work with growers in their soil analysis to figure out what they need, and then we can put those in a blend that gives them the best results, and so that we can deliver that direct to their farm so that they have those nutrients where they need them, when they need them, and so that they can apply them in a manner that's very efficient to them and works well in their planting systems and what they're doing. Sure Crop Fertilizers has been around for a long time. We always say we're big enough to take care of everything you need, but we're small enough to do it quickly. You can get a hold of us at 1-800-635-4743. Our website is surecropfertilizers.com, and you can always email me at Corey@surecropfertilizers.com, and with any questions you have, and we're glad to answer and work with you.
This segment brought to you by Kansas Wheat. Learn more at rediscoverwheat.org.
All right, my name is Mickey Ransom. I'm interim department head, Department of Agronomy at Kansas State University. I'm originally from Arkansas. I grew up on a farm in Arkansas, majored in agriculture, have degrees from the University of Arkansas and also from Ohio State University. But I've been here in Manhattan, Kansas for 34 years. So I've been working for the department for a while. I was trained and I did a lot of my work in soil survey, soil classification, and I taught a lot of the soil science classes at K-State. And then starting in 2000, I've been assistant head for teaching in the Department of Agronomy. But then this past June, our department head, Gary Przinski, moved on to another position. He's director of the Ohio Agricultural Research and Development Center in Columbus, Ohio. And so they needed someone to come in and manage and work with the department for a period of time. So that's what I'm doing. I'm in a position that's called interim department head, and I'll be in this position for about 1 to 2 years while we do a national search for a new department head. And I'm close to retirement anyway. I guess I drew the short straw maybe when I took this position, but it's an honor for me to do it. It's a challenge. I'm looking forward to working with everyone. I get to work now in teaching and research and also in the extension area. So it's kind of a new position for me, and I'm looking forward to it. But I do plan on retiring as soon as we have a new permanent head here. I'd also like to give you a little bit of an update about what's going on in the department. Recently, one of our professors, Ray Acevedo, who did a lot of work with the precision agriculture, left Kansas State University to go into private industry. But here just last week, we got permission to go ahead and advertise and do a national search for his position. So we will be filling that position. Also, Curtis Thompson, he was the Extension State Leader for Agronomy and Extension Weed Scientist. He recently retired. Now Dallas Peterson, who's also a weed scientist, is our Extension State Leader for Agronomy. But anyway, we lost technically Curtis's position due to budget cuts, but we're pretty hopeful that we're going to be able to get that position back. I can't really give any details about that now because it's still in the discussion stage, but I think the chances are pretty good that we may be able to fill an extension weed science position. And then we've also, due to some budget cuts, and retirements and people leaving, we've lost the area extension agronomist in southeast Kansas and also the area extension agronomist in southwest Kansas. Those positions are not budgeted in the Department of Agronomy, but they do a lot of agronomy type work, and we're currently working on trying to develop a plan to fill those positions as well.
KFRM is one of the largest farm radio stations in the nation, dedicated to informing and entertaining rural listeners from northern Oklahoma to southwestern Nebraska. You can catch KFRM in many ways, of course, 550 on the AM dial, streaming at kfrm.com, or on your smartphone by going to the TuneIn Radio app, or on Ag AM in Kansas on Tuesdays and Facebook every day of the week. KFRM, tune us in. You'll be glad you did.
This segment brought to you by Sure Crop, liquid crop nutrition delivered right to your farm.
My name is Dr. Ignacio Ciampitti. I'm an associate professor in the Department of Agronomy, cropping system specialist at Kansas State University. Today we are in the Rossville Field Day. My idea is I will be discussing with many of our farmers about changes on looking at practices for different crops. But more specifically, we will be discussing about soybeans and corn. So if we look at soybeans, and specifically if we discuss about what are the potential practices maximizing or helping us to improve profits, we look at a review on all the practices, and we highlight the use of narrow rows. It's one of the practices that is helping us to capture more light and help us in fighting with the weeds. And the second point is also looking at seeding rates. Many times we don't discuss soybean seeding rates, but if we are in a very low productivity environment, those soybeans usually take longer to cover the canopy, and many times they will grow really slow. So increasing seeding rates in some of the really poor environments, it might be a good idea to start increasing and obtaining more yields. When we are discussing about corn, in this case, looking at seeding rates is another factor that we need to emphasize. And in corn, when we're looking about seeding rates, we did some analysis and in collaboration with Pioneer, and some of the data that we collected and we summarized, in a very nice publications, they are looking at optimal seeding rates really vary with the different yield environments. If a farmer is farming in less than 120 bushels, optimal seeding rates will go from 18,000 to 20,000 plants. When we are moving to high yield environments, 150 bushels, then optimal seeding rates start increasing, and we are moving from 24,000 plants per acre. Ultimately the point is that optimal seeding rate changes with environment. If you are in an irrigated field and you're trying to maximize yields, optimal seeding rates needs to go up to make sure that you capture more light, improve biomass, and basically make sure that you maximize your yields. These are some of the things that we will be discussing here, and these are some of the key topics in trying to improve management for corn and soybeans. Drought this year, particularly if we are looking at the eastern part of the state, the impact and the timing of the drought was impacting specifically corn yields. And when we're looking at corn, one of the main impacts of the drought is impacting on ear size, except, this is just an example of a really good irrigation. Many times, drought is impacting the size of the ears, and the other thing that we are also looking on in some of the plots that were impacted by drought and heat is that many of the kernels in the upper section are aborted. So you shouldn't be misled by the size of the ears. You should be opening always and make sure that you see how many of those kernels are retained. And in drought and heat was basically impacting the maximum kernel number and the retention of those. Okay. No, soybeans, when you're looking at soybeans in this environment, soybeans and in terms of a drought, in terms of timing, the drought for soybeans was coming kind of too early, and the heat the same. So if we are turning into lower temperatures with more precipitation in the next couple of weeks, we might obtain really good yields because soybeans will define 50 or 40% of the yields by mid-August to mid-late September. So that means that we still have some time to really go and get really good yields on soybeans, because most of the definition of soybeans is connected to what will be the final seed weight.
Hi, I'm Kim Mandarin with Hardy Insurance. I'm here to help you with all of your farm and ranch needs. When it comes to protecting your operation and your family, you need a name you can trust at a price you can afford. Call me today or visit hardyaviationins.com.
Ag Promo Source is a unique group of marketing specialists with one mission: help your ag business grow. Each affiliate has their own area of expertise, and they work together to bring you advice, products, and services. To get started, visit agpromosource.com. Ag Promo Source. Together we grow.
I was in an accident where I fell off a roof. I took the conventional route by using medicine, and I went to see numerous doctors. I found that it really wasn't working as well as I had hoped it would. I don't know why I started to research stem cells, but I did. And I visited with the doctors. They were excellent. I had my neck done, I had my shoulders done, I had a section of my back done, my hips, my sacrum, my sciatica, and my tailbone. But it wasn't really that painful. I was surprised at how easily it was done. It took me approximately 4 hours from the beginning to the end. Now I am having better range of motion in my arms and my neck and my back. So it's been very beneficial to me, and I want to thank Kansas Regenerative Medical Center. It was a long road to get there, but I'm so glad that I found them.
This segment brought to you by Kansas Corn. Learn more at kscorn.com.
Do I need to introduce myself? Hi, I'm Anita Dille, and I'm a professor in the Department of Agronomy at Kansas State University. And today I'm going to be sharing with the growers at this field day information on how to use cover crops as a weed management tool in their crop rotation and cropping systems in the area. And there's been so much interest in using cover crops for a lot of different reasons. And so I want to just really give some steps, some guidelines of things to think about for the growers as they consider putting cover crops into their system. A lot of benefits include erosion control, fertility management, but weeds have been a real problem. A lot of pigweeds, a lot of mare's tail, things that have popped up in different crops. I mean, can we use cover crops because a lot of those weeds are herbicide resistant, and so we need some other tools available. And so there's a lot of interest in that, and looking to talk about what weeds do these farmers worry about, when do they emerge, and we need to get our cover crop in place before those weeds come up so that they can compete and beat out the weeds. And then we need to talk about their crop rotation and can they adjust what they're doing or what are they looking at in regards to corn, soybean, winter wheat, or other things in their crop rotation and when they would put that cover crop in there. And then we need to think about how to terminate the cover crop once you've decided on it. And so there's a lot of interest in understanding when do I terminate it? Do I have to go weeks ahead of my regular crop that I want to plant, or can I do it after I planted my crop? And then what impact does that have on the weeds? But we still want herbicides in the system because there's other weeds that we can manage with those herbicides. So real combinations, really looking at how to integrate the whole system together and using cover crops. What we found in research that we've been doing is that we can reduce the number of weeds that are emerging and coming up in crops with a cover crop by 50%. So we're really cutting the number of weeds in half. And then the size of those weeds that are trying to grow in a cover crop before I plant a row crop is reduced by about 95%. So little weeds are a lot easier to control, and especially if there's fewer of them. And so we're just finding that the system together with cover crops and their impact on weeds has just been incredible. And so that's why there's a lot of interest. We always get a lot of questions as people are worried about, oh, those cover crops are using all my moisture. And in a year like this in some places in Kansas, it's been pretty tough to watch some of our crops grow without much water. And so cover crops then make you question it. But we've really seen a lot of benefit in keeping our ground covered with cover crops and getting that benefit from weed control as well. So some of the cover crops, again, depends where you are, but we've seen a lot of cereals, so things like rye, winter wheat even, oats, spring oats, and some of those will freeze out or they're winter hardy so they can grow all fall and into the spring. We're trying to grow a lot of biomass, so really looking at a cereal crop as a main component. Then we've seen a lot of radishes in the mixture, and again with their leaves, they can cover the ground pretty good in the spring. Legumes, so things like clovers and that sort of thing, they're really hard to get established if it's a short term, but spring peas has really worked well in a lot of places. And so if you're going from a soybean crop to a corn crop, we're really looking at potentially a legume or something broadleaf that'll help adjust that fertility to the corn crop. After corn going to soybeans, then we're really looking at that cereal crop. Maybe I need to scavenge some nitrogen. I don't need to produce any nitrogen for my soybean crop, so those really fit into those systems. When I talk with growers that have been doing this and having success, they've really changed some of the timing of when they do their crop production practices. So maybe planting a cover crop in March, terminating in June, and planting their beans just a little bit later, but getting the full benefit of the cover crop and still getting a full season of soybean production out of it. And so really getting farmers to think a little bit differently about what they have been doing to fit that cover crop in there, but getting the benefit out of it as well.
Summer is busy at Tarwater Farm and Home. We have just about everything you'll need for your summer projects, and we're consistently competitively priced. Tarwaters can help make your grass and garden grow, and we have a huge variety of equipment to cut it. If you have a farm, Tarwaters has the products and equipment to keep it going strong. And our expanded parking lot will make it even more convenient to shop. So come see us at Tarwater Farm and Home in Topeka.
Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
Valley Vet Supply.
This segment brought to you by Kansas Soybean Commission. Progress powered by Kansas farmers.
Hi, I'm Stu Duncan with K-State Research and Extension. I'm the Northeast Region Crops and Soil Specialist with Kansas State University here at the Kansas River Valley Experiment Field Fall Field Day near Rossville. And my topic this evening is weed control in corn and soybeans, or full season long weed control. And one of the things we've seen here in the Kansas River Valley over the years, since 1981, our corn yields, irrigated corn yields, have grown at more than 1 bushel a year since that time. Our production has really gone up, and the soybeans have been about 2/3 of a bushel in the irrigated section of the Kansas River Valley. So we have, but there is a lot of things have changed. We had good beans here in 1981. We have better beans now. Things that have changed is our tillage practices, or may have changed. We have better hybrids for corn. We have better cultivars in soybeans. We have traits that for weed and insect resistance that we have in our crops now. But crop protection is a big thing. And some of the things just haven't changed in that weeds are still one of our #1 problems. Fertility management. Again, hybrid selection, the technology has been the big thing, and our herbicides. That part of the technology has changed radically since the early 80s. One of our issues we've had develop over time with weed control is that over time we have developed resistance to some of our most effective herbicides, whether that was through overuse or just ineffectiveness, or the weeds themselves changing or evolving and being better against it. When we first saw resistant weeds showing up, and it wasn't, now we think of all the glyphosate resistant weeds, and that's something we thought would probably happen, but we saw that happen with other families of herbicides, and there are many families of herbicides, and that can be the confusing thing. So what we have urged producers to do, whether it's corn or soybeans or wheat, is to use a different site of action, and they're rated by families, herbicide on the weeds. And I've got some demonstrations out here this year. We have a corn demonstration in front of a couple of replicated plots. We have good herbicides for season-long weed control. One of the principles that when it's under extreme stress, you don't want to use certain type of herbicides or certain herbicides. It got very hot right after my post-emerge, so I reduced stands. But you can really see our cultural practice of row space going from 30 to 15 inches made a tremendous difference where those plots were. That canopy can be very effective, and some of our work from Dr. Ignacio Ciampitti, they've got 1 year or 2 years of it. He's going to be talking here later tonight too, not necessarily about soybeans. I think he's going to be talking about corn. But one of his students had a great study. That's one of the big things we can do, and especially under irrigation around here, we can narrow those rows up, probably get a bump in yield just from narrowing them up with a little increased population, which we did. We dropped about 15,000 more seeds per acre in those 30-inch rows. But our weed control with just one post-emergent shot is excellent. Whereas in the 30-inch rows, it's gotten a little woolly, and I'm just glad they haven't mowed them down yet. We're going to have beans in there. We'll still have beans, but so it's a comprehensive program, and that's what we're really promoting. And we had a really good visual of that. Plus, we ought to have some good information later this year, and that's pretty much what I.
Closed captioning brought to you by Ag Promo Source. Together we grow. Learn more at agpromosource.com.